Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Wixo Season 2. We are now on episode 13 of the series, and in the last episode we saw a pretty large event, being the discovery and meeting up of the Old World section and the Eastern Asian countries. These two areas were previously isolated from each other, however, they did recently just discover each other, and that did actually lead to some side effects in East Asia, and so if you don't know about that, do please be sure to go ahead and watch the last episode. I do go into depth a lot further on that. But anyway, we are now on to episode 13, and if you guys do end up enjoying this episode, please do be sure to like, subscribe, and leave any ideas in the comments below, and let's go ahead and get straight into it. So the first thing we are going to be taking a look at is going to be over here, in Southeast Asia. In the last episode, these trading kingdoms down here, although now there is only two, they went through quite a few issues, some wars and things, due to not coping with the plague very well, and we are going to be seeing a little bit of a continuation of that. As we have this rival group go ahead and break away in the green team, and these guys do not like the green team's current status of ruling, and they want to control themselves. A lot of these people are also remnants of the old pink Cambodian country that was here, and eventually this country just gets completely toppled and destroyed, and it is replaced by a somewhat democratic kingdom. These guys, after forming up, do go ahead and expand a little bit, and they also begin to re-establish trade. That was one of the reasons these guys rebelled from the green team. The green team cut off trade, hoping it would help them deal with the plague. However, all that did was make them in a worse situation. So yeah, the newly independent Borneo country is going to go to a lot of effort exploring a lot more of the waters around this area, and with an influx of people moving in from, the center of Borneo where there are still tribes. A lot of people are migrating here, as this country is now finally ruled by the native ethnic Bornean people. This country starts to expand a lot, and we also have it expand its ambitions over here into parts of the Philippines as well. They conquer several islands, and just establish a lot of trade as well, especially with the Chinese countries in the south coast. Over in Australia, we have this country send out a lot more boats, and they actually eventually discover parts of New Guinea, so they are finally, for the first time, actually off of the mainland, and we have them settling a small area over here, as well as some islands, and a colony in the northern part of this region. These guys also expand along the coast, and overall they kind of just chill and expand everywhere, as they have a lot of people to throw around. Over in the Americas, Mississippi continues to expand a little bit more. However, at this point, they are starting to reach a bit of a breaking point. We have a huge famine break out across the Mississippi River, and normally you'd just be like, oh, okay, well, we lost some food there, we can kind of recover. But as you may know, these guys are complete fundamentalist religious. They are ruled by their religion, they are an absolute theocracy like I just showed, and because of this, they believe that the gods are mad with them, and because they believe the Mississippi River is their god. They believe it created life, obviously, even though, well, that's obviously not the case looking at this area. But yeah, so they think the god is mad at them, or the gods, or however many gods they believe in. But either way, they believe that they're not doing something right, and because of this, they believe that they need to go on a conquest to please their god. They believe that the reason their god is mad is because they haven't seen any conquest in a while, and because of this, they set their eyes down south. The southern Mexican countries are actually doing quite well at the moment, and they don't like this at all, and to please their god, they are going to be launching an invasion in. More specifically, they're going to be launching an invasion into the pink Nicaraguan sort of country that used to be Belize. So they quickly move their troops in. However, as I have noted before, these guys are really falling behind in terms of technological and also military development, as they have just abandoned a lot of scientific pursuits. And because of this, their strategy, military technology, and ideas of science are just behind, and because of this, even though they are substantially stronger and have a much larger military than the pink team not only manages to hold on, but manages to get another country involved, and that is going to be these guys over here. The brown country is a big fan of this country over here, as they export all of the products that come from South America across to all of the other Mexican countries. They're a very nice trading partner to have, and they don't like the fact that this country that hates them, I mean, all you have to do is look at the religion map to see the bad things that have come about from these guys being here. This used to be all green. So they are going to go ahead and launch an invasion in, immediately sieging and capturing this city, and catching all of these people off guard. And at this point, this colony down here, with this invasion and this war, sort of reaches a tipping point. Many of the remaining peoples down here that have not yet been forcefully converted to this religion, or sent out of the country for refusing to convert, break away in support of being a part of this purple team. And yeah, at this point it's really getting a little bit concerning for Mississippi, and we even have some of these lands over here be crossed into by the purple team after they agree to join in and mobilize up their military. We have a bit of military reorganization, causing them to lose the OG capital area of that original Mexican country that got destroyed. However, overall, it's really not going so well, and eventually, quite shocking in fact, we actually have Mississippi be stalemated by the Mexican countries. The Mexican countries don't manage to continue moving on, and as Mississippi conscripts a bunch of people. However, Mississippi doesn't manage to make any pushbacks, as their strategy isn't amazing, and the armies down here are coordinated. So eventually, what we see happen is a ceasefire be agreed upon, and we have a little bit of border refinement take place. And this is what we see take place here. So overall, we actually do see a loss on the part of Mississippi, which is very concerning for them. The only place where they gained a tiny amount of land was this area right over here. They gained a small dent, but they lost land all throughout this area. I believe this is what the previous border looked like. So yeah, overall not very good. And it is starting to cause a little bit of concern in the country well, in terms of the people. The people think, maybe we're not doing so well anymore. But once again, the leadership continues to stick their head in the sand about these issues and just don't try to improve what's going wrong. Over in the British Isles, Normandy finally gets its act together, and they actually do manage to finish off claiming this area. And the reason I say finish off is because this area over here had already been taken over by Belgium. Brittany, well, like the boss they are, they finish taking over Ireland, and they even take a small portion of Scotland, forming up a border over here with Belgium, who they are somewhat friendly with, and overall, we just have the rest of the British Isles finally get taken over, and yeah, this area is fully colonized now. Continuing, like I said in the last episode, with their colonial expansions, we have more and more Belgium expansion northward, and we have our first permanent establishment of Scandinavian colonies, and overall Belgium is really spreading itself out, and they are forming themselves up a very nice set of colonies. This also comes along with more exploration, mainly just sticking to the coastal areas, as some of these parts, especially in Norway, get very cold and mountainous, and at this point with this level of technology they have kind of reached the maximum that they can really go and, establish proper connections up here with. In the mainland of Europe, however, they do continue to expand, and they move further into central Germany. They had previously taken over that pink country in Germany, and they have continued their ambitions into the area, as it's just big and flat and easy to farm. Speaking of the pink country they had taken over, that is of course now this puppet state, and they are going to go ahead and actually expand along the coast a bit. We also see Belgium take this island as well. And following along the Alps, we have a bunch more of this area actually go ahead and be discovered. This area is very flat and easy to explore around into. And after a while, we even have all of this area be explored, actually allowing sort of meeting up between these areas, although there is not much stuff going from, say, Turkey or Moldova over to Normandy or Belgium, but the inner land is explored and farming is spreading all around here, which may make this land a lot more viable to invade into, as you're not just taking over kind of unclaimed stuff where no one is. Over here we have Albania expand a tad bit, and we also have Moldova go ahead and expand as well. Moldova also expands a tiny bit further up into Ukraine at this point. However, they are by now struggling to invade into this area. A lot of the Crimean tribes have actually really sorted themselves out, and yeah, it is causing a little bit of an issue, and the people aren't really happy with the leadership for not really being able to invade into this, because, with the culture of Moldova, failure in an invasion is not very good. We also have them finally going in and charting out and exploring a lot more of the Carpathians. These areas have been an issue for them before, however they are finally sort of sorting this area out, and they even meet up near to the Hungarian areas. Over here we have Italy establishing some more colonies along the southern French coast, and we also have the South France country expand as well. Along with this, Normandy moves closer to the Pyrenees and also takes some of this land. The blue central France slash, well, sort of in the Switzerland area now, continues to expand, but these guys are very weak and rather unstable. Over in Africa, Carthage expands. They have finally set themselves up properly, and they are doing fairly well. Spain expands a little bit as well, however, they are sort of struggling to invade much further. Over in India, the coastal trading countries continue to expand. Specifically, this green country expands a massive amount. They essentially just merge with all the surrounding tribes. However, they are a little bit unstable, so they probably will have to watch that. Up in the north, Nepal continues to expand as well. And the newly formed Indian sort of personal union under the monarchy country expands as well, even meeting up in the north with this country up here. The Gujarat country expands down a little bit as well, and also expands across into the central plains of India a bit more. And Burma, who is finally beginning to recover from the plague, begins their expansions once again, and going along with their trading ambitions, they also take over, if I can move down, here we go, the, well, a lot more parts of the Malay Peninsula, actually connecting their mainland to this colony down here, and they mostly do focus on the coast down here as well. We also have them setting up a few more colonies. In the north of Shanghai, some of the last regional warlords who are still fighting and haven't gone home are continuing to kick back the Greensleeves, and eventually they are pushed back to this one tiny pocket up in the north, who, after quite a lot of fighting, these guys have been around here for several years now, are pretty much almost killed off, pushed back into two tiny little groups over here. In Japan, it is time to look at our daily Japan update, and this one, the Green Japan country, who actually benefited quite a lot from the plague, they are going to be invading the Pink country now, and they are doing this because they are in a very good spot right now. Their economy is actually taking a pretty good boom. They are trading all over the place, and they don't have to worry about any competitors up in the north, as Hokkaido, like I had said in the previous episode, is now completely isolationist, and due to this, we finally have, well, except Hokkaido, a united Japanese movement. This is the first time that the Japanese Isles have been essentially united. And yeah, this is pretty impressive to see, considering how much strife has been going on here for the past few episodes. We'll have to see if it lasts, though. This northern Filipino country dies. They formed, immediately went through a civil war, and they have really not been able to get their act together. So yeah, goodbye. But now we are going to be moving over to the Middle East, because we are going to be seeing a conflict take place over here. Over the last few years, it's been about 20 years or so since the end of the Second Hellenic War, which has obviously now resulted in Moldova having complete regional dominance over like Central/Eastern Europe, this sort of area. And they are now looking to continue their expansion. They are not done yet. How Moldova sees it, they have no reason to not just expand and expand and expand as much as they can. Okay, we just won a war and got land. Who says we shouldn't go for another one? And the leaders, the three chancellors that have their 2-year terms, they all want glory. Each chancellor gets elected, and they only serve for a 2-year period, and this really drives their ambitions to expand, because the chancellors, they each want glory, and how are they going to get that if they don't do anything in their 2-year terms? And because of this, the chancellors take a vote. Essentially, how it works, you have the kind of Senate voting system, and then that passes up to the chancellors, and if 2 of the 3 chancellors vote, essentially if you get a majority, something happens, and actually all 3 of the chancellors just voted to do something that the Senate and the people are really interested in, and that is the conquest of the Anatolian Peninsula. Their regional efforts have really been in Europe. They have literally only just started their conquest into Turkey during the Second Hellenic War, when they overran Constantinople. This area all used to be it, and now that they're in Anatolia, they don't plan on leaving anytime soon. They plan on keeping on gaining land. And the gang is going to team up, and that is, of course, even though they're not on an alliance, Moldova and Trebizond, these two are best buds. They are going to be moving in for a little bit of a conquest, and that is into the southern Pink Turkish country, purple country, yes. The Moldovan forces quickly cross in, and the purple Turkish country has no idea what hit it. These guys just get absolutely blasted, and their capital quickly goes under siege. We have further movement over here. However, a little bit unexpected for Moldova, we have another party actually joining in on the war. And that party is actually going to be the Triangle Alliance. The Triangle Alliance, they are a relatively strong regional group, and they are a little bit concerned about this Moldova movement. They know that Moldova is probably not going to stop at invading this country. They also know that Trebizond does not like Turkey, and what you've got is Trebizond not liking a country and their ally being expansionist. That's a recipe for this country is probably going to get invaded by Moldova. And once Moldova invades Turkey, who is going to stop Moldova from invading them? So they believe that it is only a matter of time before Moldova puts them on the chopping block. I mean, Lebanon is literally right next to the country that's getting invaded, and Moldova clearly has ambitions in this region. So because of this, after a vote gets passed between the Triangle Alliance leaders, I think these guys are all kingdoms, yeah, we have the Triangle Alliance agreeing to go ahead and support southern Turkey in this war, and the Triangle Alliance declares war on Moldova. This is actually very surprising to Moldova. Moldova did not expect this whatsoever. However, I think one thing for certain that Moldova does realise is this has definitely just started a very big war. So, Moldova, who had only, they had only got a small part of their professional army into this war for this conquest, as they thought it would be easy, and they also had Trebizond help. Moldova immediately conscripts their entire army up and begins mandatory military service. They already have mandatory military service from 16 to 18, but now the people doing that military service, they are immediately sent to the front lines, and this wave of people it's really noticeable. Before, that siege had kind of been going out, but the city just gets toppled, and we have these forces rushing in, and we have the first battles begin between the Triangle Alliance and Moldova. Well, actually on Triangle Alliance land. The Triangle Alliance had already sent troops into South Turkey, so they had already been fighting, but now we have the first movement down here into the actual Triangle Alliance countries. Moldova quickly moves in and begins to siege this city, and in the north, it's a little bit of the opposite. We have the first front lines begin up here, as we have Azerbaijan, who is by far the strongest Triangle Alliance member, begin the invasion into Trebizond, and Trebizond is a little bit worried as their capital is the closest major city to the Azerbaijan border. However, they do have a notable garrison around this area, and Moldova is also beginning to send troops over here to help them out. In the south, we have the first proper battle between the Triangle Alliance and Moldovan forces. It takes place right above the city as Moldova is planning to move around and encircle it, and we have a Triangle Alliance defeat, and Moldova of course is strong. However, Moldova did actually lose a substantial amount of troops in this battle, and during the second one, where they are at the coast trying to finalise the encirclement, we actually have Moldova lose a battle to the Triangle Alliance, which is slightly concerning. However, in the north, these Moldovan troops just continue to roll on through, and eventually the city just falls anyway, so that encirclement did not end up being necessary. We have the Moldovan forces continue to roll on through, and eventually, before they even know it, the Moldovan forces are at the gates of the capital of Lebanon. However, in the north, it's going much better, as the capital of Trebizond is under siege, and they even manage to encircle the city, then afterwards rushing in along the coastal areas, until eventually a wave of Moldovan troops moves in, and eventually manages to stop them. In the south, the front line sort of reaches a stalemate, except for some small Moldovan advances in the north, where there aren't that many Triangle Alliance forces. However, eventually, Moldova pulls a little bit of a trick up its sleeve that catches the Triangle Alliance very much off guard. As we have the Moldovan Navy, which has really gained a lot of experience and strength since the Hellenic Wars. Before the Hellenic Wars, Moldova barely had a navy at all. It was just a few trade ships in the Black Sea. However, now Moldova has a big proper navy, and they use this to launch a surprise invasion to the capital of Palestine, and the capital of Palestine actually falls over to the Moldovan forces, as Once again, these guys were not expecting this at all. This causes a bit of disorganization, allowing a further push north by the Moldovan forces. However, once again, after a while, this front begins to stabilize, with Azerbaijan pulling the troops from the puppet state over here, which had recently been fighting off some Persian tribes. With these Azerbaijan troops, this front line stabilizes. However, in the south, Palestine still begins to lose land, and another city is put under encirclement. But then, a little bit of luck comes on the side of the Triangle Alliance, as another country is actually going to go ahead and join their side, and this one is, well, pretty expected. It's going to be Turkey. Turkey and Trebizond have a pretty hateful history against each other, and Turkey does not like the idea of being conquered by Trebizond, so due to this, Turkey joins the war, and with a lot of strategy, they actually do this, which is very bad, and, well, because the supply lines are cut off out, obviously, and this causes a huge amount of dismay on the Moldovan front lines. However, Turkey's army is very weak, and they had not really consulted Azerbaijan in doing this. The only thing they had consulted is Turkey sending over troops to this front line, which has a small effect. But overall, this really doesn't cause too much issues, and with Moldovan boats actually on the coast bombarding these guys, we actually have Moldova really easily managing to actually retake the coast and begin to push into Turkey. Now, of course, this does come at the loss of having less troops in Lebanon, which causes a further pushback. They still do manage to maintain the siege of the city, though. However, to combat this, Moldova has a really large population, actually somewhat comparable with Azerbaijan. They probably have more people than Azerbaijan at this point, actually, even though Azerbaijan does have Mesopotamia. They essentially just start mass conscription, and this actually prevents any major Turkic advances into the south of Trebizond. All of these advances are quickly pushed back, and with this influx of troops, we even have more and more of Azerbaijan be pushed back over here. And eventually, we have proper Trebizond and Moldovan forces push into parts of northern Turkey. And eventually, very quickly in fact, we even have Turkey go ahead and fall over. However, all of their troops have already retreated. They saw, if you kind of see how it looks, it's like a bulge in position, really not that good of a situation to be in. So they had already, after starting to lose and losing this gain particularly, already retreated their troops back to this sort of front line, and eventually this causes a front line to sort of stabilize and form up over here. In the south, however, this army is like kind of separate to what's going on up here, so this Turkic joining did not really affect these guys all too much. None of the troops were pulled out, which was probably a good strat by Moldova, and Palestine is actually cut in two, and the southern areas over here, well, you know how Egypt kind of has a history with wanting ambitions over this land. They even joined in on the second war over here to get some of this land back. Well, yeah, so that's not amazing. At this point, Palestine essentially collapses and has to fall over to the occupation of Lebanon, and these Moldovan forces continue to rush on through. And despite the fact that Turkey joined, that really didn't help out too much, and overall, the Moldovan side is still substantially stronger. They have larger armies, better military tech and strategy, and this leads to eventually the capturing of the capital of Lebanon. After a few more months of fighting in the Anatolian Peninsula, we eventually also have the fall of the rest of Turkey, and at this point, it essentially is just Azerbaijan fighting here, who, after getting pushed back to the capital once again, which, well, this city has definitely seen better days due to the Azerbaijani siege, after they get pushed back to here, they begin to think about peace talks, and this is motivated even further after the coastal control of Moldova is fully comes about, and these guys fully lose access to the Mediterranean Sea. We have these peace talks start to, they start to look very enticing, and eventually we have several Azerbaijani diplomats go over to the capital of Moldova, and they sue for peace, and we can now take a look at said peace treaty. And this is what we go ahead and see our peace treaty looking like, so quite a few things to break down. First of all, well, it's a nightmare for Turkey. A majority of their land gets taken over by Trebizond, and the entire, well, the entire rest of the southern area gets merged in with this new Moldovan colony, which was the remainder of the purple Turkish country that didn't go ahead and be ceded over to the Moldovan puppet state. These guys get the capital of the pink country because it's a bit easier to rule if you're like kind of regional and nearby, and well, yeah, let's just say this city is a bit rowdy at the minute. Trebizond's land gains, they gain a bunch of land from Azerbaijan over here, a lot of this sort of part that was near to their capital. They also take a little bit out of northern Lebanon as well. Palestine unfortunately no longer exists, as they essentially just collapsed during the war. The whole of the central area where anything really was went over to Moldova, and the southern area went over to Egypt, which would have been cut off from the northern part anyway, and the remainder of the northern part, which was very small, it wouldn't have really been able to function on its own, so it really just goes over to Lebanon. And in terms of military alliance, this alliance does still exist, however they are on thin ice with Moldova, so they are just kind of trying to chill out at the moment. And one final thing for this episode, we are just going to take a look at a tiny bit more expansion, just because I just want to do a little bit more in the region. We have the new Orange Sudanese country expand a tiny bit, and with a bit more exploration into some parts of the Arabian desert, we have this red country, which really hasn't been able to do much for quite a while, finally expands a little bit further in. And I think that is actually going to do it for this episode. I really hope you guys did enjoy, and I also hope you guys did enjoy some of the wars in this video as well, and I will see you guys in the next episode.